Hi guys. How are you all doing? Good? So, eat the elephant, marry the horse. Have you guys ever had to deal with this very daunting and at the same time extremely exciting and energizing challenge? Well, that's pretty much the question I asked myself when I was asked to become the CEO of Paradox Interactive. And ever since I was a small girl, my mom has said to me that you need to eat the elephant in small pieces. And this has kind of been my motto, both in terms of what I do for work, but also in life in general, and how you deal with stuff that comes up. I'm sure you all get it. It's about dividing big things into small things, and doing them one thing at a time makes it easy, or at least easier, to deal with. And then you might ask, why is Paradox a daunting challenge? Well, I actually think that this whole industry is a bit of a daunting challenge. It's super nice and super friendly, really. I feel very welcomed. But it's also a little bit difficult to come into. There's a lot of name dropping of sorts. It's people who work in different companies, it's a lot of games, and when you come into this not being from the industry or from a gamer, it's a challenge. I love it. I think it comes from the fact that it's not a huge industry, so people know each other. And I also think that it comes from that a lot of people in the industry are gamers from childhood and are super passionate about what we do. So it's all good, but a little bit challenging. And then Paradox in particular, very niche player in this industry. I don't know how well you know the company, but for those of you who do, you probably know that we make deep and complex games. And they tend to be endless or, super, super difficult. If you've tried them, you would know. Most of the time, it's in a sandbox environment. Very few instructions on how to get started. And our player vision, we make the games and you create the stories. That really evolves around, whether it's a historical game like Crusader Kings or whether it's a management game like Surviving Mars, it's all about you create the stories. We love this, and so does our fans. They also love it. They love it so much, so they spend thousands and thousands of hours playing this game. They have a very strong sense of ownership. They feel like they're passionate about what we do, and they also feel that they are part of what we do, which they are. You can check out the Steam review above here. This guy has played 9,715 hours. I mean, it's quite a lot of Europa Universalis. And his review is, it's all right, I guess. So at least he's put like a proper amount of investigation into finding out if he likes it or not. For me, I think the first time I really saw the passion from the fans live, that was at PDXCon. This is our yearly fan gathering. And we have about 1,000, or last year we had about 1,000 people coming to Stockholm. It's honestly mainly soon-to-be middle-aged men who are our core target group. But they were all standing up and cheering and waving their hands in the air when the game director, Johan, who's in the photo here, he showed up in a toga. And he came up on stage to announce a new game, Imperator Rome. And this game is coming out in April. And that whole energy and just involvement from the fans, it really makes it very, very special. These guys, they also know who Fredrik Wester is, and they really, really admire and respect him. He is the main owner and also the founder of the company, and I think he's here somewhere. And he's such an integral part of this, and he's such a vocal part of who we are. So it's also a big step to step into his shoes. He's also currently my boss, so, it's very important from that perspective as well. But anyway, we're talking about a really quite big group of people. We have around 3.5 million active players every month, and they have played hundreds or even thousands of hours. So for me, it's very important to convince them that I'm going to take care of their baby and that I want to see it evolve in the right direction. Then on the other hand, the other group of people who are possibly even more engaged and passionate about this are our employees. So we're about 450 people. We're in 6 offices. And many of these guys, they come from being fans of Paradox themselves. And they have a very strong sense of ownership of the games and even how they develop over time. All of us who work at Paradox, we really love and try to interact as much as possible with our community, pretty much on a daily basis in one way or another. And it doesn't really matter if you're a game director or if you are a developer or if you work in marketing. Everyone has this strong sense of responsibility when it comes to taking care of the games and also taking care of our fans. And then me, on the other hand, I come from a brief stint in magazine publishing and then many years in online gambling. And you can imagine that that was a bit, it was seen with quite a bit of suspicion from a couple of people on our team. And I can talk about that for a long time, but that's for a different time. Basically people were concerned that I was going to come in and introduce loot boxes into every game within 5 minutes. So far, that has not happened, so all good for now. But also, they love karaoke, and I did get a feeling that when I had my first staff meeting with the entire team, first of all, the questions were around loot boxes, but then quite quickly they shifted over to, okay, do you do karaoke? In that case, what song do you love? And I do love karaoke, so in that sense I fitted in quite nicely. And my favorite song is probably Don't Stop Me Now by Queen, which is also very fitting for this role, so that's good. How I joined Paradox was that I came on as a non-executive director of the board in 2014. And it was very confusing coming in from not knowing that much about the industry at all. We were running around 15 to 20 game projects. Some were live and some were in the planning phase, but all of them had one real name and they had one code name, and in a lot of cases they even had 2 code names, and all of them were based on 80s TV shows. So it was very difficult to keep track on what one. And when you join for just maybe 6 meetings a year, you tend to forget between every meeting what's going on. So we, non-execs, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was what, and we were moderately successful, but we moved ahead. And the company was quite small and nimble, and a lot of people were involved in the decision making. And it was just all this information flowing through the whole company that people really loved and enjoyed. But of course, when you grow, it becomes more challenging to involve everyone. And so basically, the elephant was just growing at a pretty high speed. And we had a couple of hits at this point, both from our grand strategy games that we had worked with from day one. But we also had some other titles, like a game called Magica 2. It was made by a bunch of students in the north of Sweden, and we didn't really expect it to be such a hit, but it was. And when we released it, it was quite buggy, so we had to do patch releases every single day, and some of them ruined more than they fixed, the whole drill. And we learned to be more careful with our patch releases, basically. We were also in the middle of building City Skylines at this point, and we did that together with Colossal Order. We thought that this would be a very successful game, but we didn't really know how much, so it pretty much beat all of our expectations and really pushed the company into a different league. We celebrated, of course, big chocolate fountain in the kitchen that everyone got to enjoy, but it was good. It was good. This all led to us thinking that we were going to take the next step as a company. And that next step for us was to list the company on the stock exchange in Sweden. Many reasons for doing this. I think all companies have different reasons, but in our case, especially Fredrik really wanted to open the company up to both our employees and to our fans. They've really given a lot to the company over the years, and they are such a big part of the success. And we also had quite a few employees who were sitting on options or shares, but they were a bit difficult to trade. So just to give them an opportunity to capitalize a little bit on the success, we decided to go down this route. Wanting to stay true to our culture and not do things the way everyone else does things, we decided to do it in a different way. And that basically means that we didn't have any major anchor investors, and we didn't go with a big bank. Instead, we chose to go with a crowdsourcing platform. to make it easier for people who don't necessarily know that much about trading shares. And we also had a smaller bank helping us. And the market is a very tricky place. I'm sure a lot of you are aware. And you can't, of course, control how the share price develops. So, of course, we didn't want to push anyone into buying shares. So it was more about opening up the opportunity for anyone who's there. And then the day of the IPO, you see the photo here. We all went to the stock exchange in Stockholm. We brought the entire company. I'm very, very sure that they have never seen this many knights or queens or blorgs or other things, or hoodies for that matter. So, we were a bit of a different group to come in there. All of these successes and progresses led to the very dreaded word change. And we had a lot of new projects, we had a lot of new people, both people in senior management and really throughout the company. And even though we love to say the phrase, the only constant is change, we use it all the time in Paradox, I have a few thoughts on this. I actually don't think anyone likes change. The only change you like a little bit is the one you control yourself. But when it happens in a big company, you rarely have that opportunity. And the second thing is that the main difference is really how quickly people react to change and how they go through this whole curve of, first of all, ignoring, then hating it, and then hopefully adjusting and accept as you go along. And in our case, people knew that it was coming. They saw that it was coming. It was necessary. So it was much more about how do we make the right changes and looking through the company culture. What parts of the culture are crucial to who we are and are crucial to keep for the future? And what things have we maybe outgrown and should not be part of this? And what should we leave behind? So basically, all about trying to reduce the fear around the change, but also drive it. And then in the fall of 2017, Fredrik asked me if I wanted to join the company for real and become the CEO. And it's quite hard to describe the feeling when you get a question like that. It's a huge honor, and it's such a vote of confidence that someone wants to, to put their trust in you. But it's also scary, and it's definitely daunting. This is his company, it's baby that he's built, together with other people, absolutely, but still. But for me, even though it's daunting and scary, I really only thought about it for, I normally say a second, it was probably a little bit longer than that. But only an idiot would turn down this fantastic opportunity to join the company and the people and also the industry. So it was an easy choice after all. And the main question I still get, but primarily got when this was announced is, so how are you going to run this? How are you don't come from the industry, you're not a gamer, and now you're taking over this, one of the most niche and hardcore gaming companies out there. And I don't know exactly what the reason why Fred asked me what they are, but I do think I have a few things that make me fit into this role. And the first is that I'm actually good at leading people. I like it, I enjoy it, and I don't mind being in charge. I like making tough decisions. I also like making fun decisions. They don't always go together. So just really working together with your senior team and through them and with them run and control a company. And the second is that this isn't a new elephant for me. I come from C-level roles in very successful companies that today are much bigger than Paradox is, but they were similar size when I joined. So I've been part of this up and down of growing and also changing a company and doing this and how do you do that when everything is just expanding? So back to the whole thing around change, what is important from a leadership perspective? Well, I believe that you, as a leader, you really have to keep the direction and you have to keep especially the energy. I've probably made like a million mistakes in this area over the years, especially I'm super impatient, so I rush through and then I'm done, and I think that everyone should be done with me, but that's normally not the case. So, they're super busy being angry or confused or figuring out what are we doing, why are we doing it, how are we doing it. So for me, it's just been this very big learning that you have to anchor everything you do. especially when you drive change. And if you want to be successful, you have to find this group of influential key individuals. You can't do it all by yourself, it's impossible. And then you keep the energy, and you don't let go of the energy. And that's really your main thing. And since I joined, what I've been focusing on is I needed to find this group of senior people who are the ones who control the company or you know, influence everything in the company, because I needed them with me on the journey. And I think one of the best ways of finding that is just walking around chatting with people. So that's pretty much what I've been doing, to put it in a very blunt sense. I've spent hours, many hours, with our dev teams playing our games. Very, very fun. I've played mainly our games, but also some others. Unfortunately, I found out that I can't play first-person shooter games. It makes me totally seasick, so I have to stay away from those. I've talked to employees in all parts of the business, and I've also talked a lot to our fans. They're very active on Twitter, so it's an easy way to just connect with them. And of course, we also have our events. But they know so much about what we do, so sometimes it's like they even know more than we do ourselves. And I've found this group of key people. So together with them, we have evaluated and we've refined where we're going as a company, the strategy basically. And we're now in the middle of trying to implement this into the company and making sure everyone knows not just where we're going, but how we're going there. And I'm not gonna, tell you all about where we're going and how we're going, but just a few things. We're gonna keep some secrets for the future, but we are still, of course, gonna be making these very deep and complex games. We have more games live every year. Our business model, which is based on releasing a game and then continue to develop it over years, that can change. We know that business models change over time. But the thing that won't change is that we will make sure we keep developing games for as long as the fans want to keep playing them. And by that I mean developing the same game. And the studios own the creative process, and this is super important. So we keep that, whether it's our own studio, these are our studios here, or if it's a third-party studio, we want to be the best partner and we want to be the best publisher. So that's something we continuously work on. And as projects grow, we also need to keep the key gates. So we are working a lot on finding good key gate structures around this and making the decisions at the right time. And then on the other hand, we have the product managers. They own the P&L. And that's also important because they also control both the studio side of things and the sales and marketing side of things. You know this whole old saying that a good game sells itself? Those days are probably over. And they have probably been over for quite a long time. So the sales and marketing side is also super important. And then from my perspective, it's very much about how do you manage a portfolio of risks, really? One project, very little risk, one very high risk. How do you do that? So it's key for me to have all these people who really know what they're doing in the different parts of the business. We also need to have fans who like to play our games. We will totally continue to be hardcore and nerdy, but they're quite difficult to get into these games, so we need to work on our accessibility. I have, for instance, here, this is an image from Stellaris, which is one of the first games I played. This little dude here is Veer, he's the guide, and the first time I played it, he says, you have to go explore and you have to go research the galaxy. And then it says nothing about how you actually research the galaxy. So, these things we really need to work quite a lot on. And these games, they have thousands of options. So if we don't do it, it's impossible for customers to come into them. So we're working very hard on accessibility. And the games, when you reach a master of excellency, you spend thousands of hours planning and plotting. So that should still be there. It's just how do we guide people to get to that point. Employees. This is also a key thing. When it comes to who works for us, we want to broaden the scope, and we have continuously. I think the fact that I'm standing here is a clear sign of that. Here I've been crowned, as you can see, and also given the keys to the kingdom. And I live by the device that we hire for attitude and we train for skill. So this doesn't mean that we don't want people with skill, of course we do, but we also think that broadening the scope and having different experiences coming in, that really helps us. We're a Swedish company at heart. But we also have people from 30 nationalities working with us. So, that also broadens the scope quite a lot. Last but not least, I'm very fond of this whole saying that you can make mistakes, but you have to learn from them. And also, the prompter is moving very quickly here, but also, it's key for us that you're allowed to make mistakes. But you have to learn from them, and you have to figure out when we do them. We see canceling projects as part of the process. It's not a failure, but that also means that the sooner we cancel something, the better. Also, very importantly, cancel projects, that doesn't mean cancel teams or cancel jobs. So then we move things around. So, conclusion. The grandest strategy of games, or whatever you do, if you play a game, if you run a company, it's really all about putting the small pieces together and chewing them one at a time. And when you've done that, then you're ready for the next elephant. So don't forget that. And if you want to know about marrying your horse, then you should play Crusader Kings. There's this horse called Glitterhoof in there, and that definitely helped me learn about the company and the game. So I wish you luck with Glitterhoof. Thank you.